Today's video, I wanted to be a continuation of what I was talking about yesterday about forgiving others even when people hurt you, which is a very common topic that's usually found in the Bible. But now I want to talk about more of the aftermath. After we forgive that person, it's very easy, especially for me, to continue to hold a grudge against someone when they have done wrong to me, even though they haven't apologized, even though I say that I haven't forgiven them. Sometimes the thought comes back of what that person has done to me, and it gets me upset. That is holding a grudge against someone. But what does the Bible say about having grudges? We see in a very powerful passage taught by Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 2 that there is a way into forgiving the person and removing the grudge that you have against that person. And so we see by the context of this chapter, it really focuses on the Church of Corinth. And as Paul is trying to defend his apostleship from the Corinthians, there was a point where the Corinthians heard the first letter Paul had, and they had disciplined someone, had punished someone for a sin that they have done, according to what Paul said in the first letter. And so now they reach that point where whether they should keep the person or kick the person out of the church. Of course, Paul is going to have the Corinthians forgive the person and allow him to rehabilitate himself within the church. And so we see in verse 7, this is what Paul says regarding that person who has sinned against the Church of Corinth. So that on the contrary, you should rather graciously forgive and comfort him, lest such a one be swallowed up by excessive sorrow. Verse 8, therefore, I encourage you to reaffirm your love for him, for to this end also I wrote, so that I might know your proven character, whether you are obedient in all things. Verse 10, but one whom you graciously forgive in anything, I graciously forgive also. For indeed, what I have graciously forgiven, if I have graciously forgiven anything, I did it for your sakes in the presence of Christ. So, verse 11, that no advantage would be taken of us by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his schemes. A very powerful passage that highlights the real goal of forgiveness is to reaffirm that your love for that person. And so in First Peter chapter 2, I was talking about how Christ is our example. Now today is how do we practically apply that in a biblical worldview? How do we apply forgiveness towards other people, even when they have done bad things to us? Paul says you should rather graciously forgive and comfort him. There's really three two commands here we see Paul say: graciously forgive and comfort him. And why did Paul put graciously in here? I was wondering, why did he have to put graciously? He could have just said forgive him. But no, he says graciously forgive him and comfort him. I think this is such a reflection of what Christ, our example, has done for us. He graciously forgives us. Grace meaning unmerited love. The love that we didn't work for, God has given us and graciously forgiven us. And not only has he forgiven us, he has comforted us with the Comforter, the Holy Spirit. And so Christians in the same way should be forgiving graciously and comforting people, just like the nature of God. Then in verse 8, we see another commandment: reaffirm your love for him. Reestablish the love you already had for this person. Again, it's a reflection of God's character. Every time we sin, God continues to pour out his love for his loved ones, the ones that he saves. And even though he should be super angry when we sin, he's not. He is a gracious God. And then Paul mentions in verse 9 that he writes letters so that they know the proven character, whether they are obedient in all things, whether they are going to obey Paul in what he says. Verse 10, but whom you graciously forgive anything, I graciously also forgive. For indeed, what I have graciously forgiven, if I have graciously forgiven anything, I did it for your sakes in the presence of Christ. I thought it was amazing to see how Paul has a sort of relationship with this church, even though, again, this church does not treat him the best. Yet he is able to trust and be unified with the church. Whenever they're able to forgive someone, he can also agree in the same way. Why? Because he did it for their sakes in the presence of Christ. Paul always valued Christ and his church over what Paul thought of himself or the grudges that Paul had. Notice that he could have made it so that the person they forgive, they also have to ask Paul for permission. But no, Paul just allows them to forgive anyone they want because he trusts them. And so that's the kind of relationship we with the church should have. And then verse 11, so that no advantage would be taken of us by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his schemes. We have to realize that we do not battle against flesh and blood. The schemes of Satan continue on in this world. Even though there are some good things that happen in this world, there are also some bad things. And we need to realize that Satan is trying to divide the church here today. That is often what happens. And so Paul is telling us is that we know what the devil is scheming. We need to be unified. We cannot have any grudges, because if we have grudges towards one another or a person or someone within the church, there's going to be divide and the devil is winning. As a church, we need to be unified and be as one, just like Jesus prayed in John chapter 17. So I hope this video blessed you and helped you today to learn that we as Christians shouldn't keep grudges against people. Even though people do that for us, we should not be doing that for other people. Let Christ be the example for your life. On that note, take care and God bless.